half of the world or more has capital controls, right? If you look at that blue dollar rate, what you'll find is the official rate is 170, the unofficial rate is 317. It means the government and the bank steal half of your money every time you change it. And so this is offensive to the Bitcoiners. And our view is it's offensive that they steal half of your money every 36 months. And it's offensive they steal half your money every time you change it. And it's also offensive that MasterCard and Visa take 2.5% of your money every time you move a transaction from left to right, which means that if you do 40 transactions a year, you've lost all your money.
MicroStrategy Executive Chairman Michael Saylor recently debated George Gammon and private fund manager Doomberg in an interview. Before we get into the debate, here is a little background on what led to the insightful discussion about Bitcoin's status as the best hedge against the debasement of fiat currency. On December 7, Doomberg reacted to a clip from Saylor's interview with PBE Podcast. In the clip, the popular Bitcoin advocate gives his thoughts on Ether and XRP. When asked what he thought about the XRP case and why the SEC was only going after the crypto token if others like Solana and Ether are also securities, here's how Saylor replied.
What are your thoughts about what's going on with Ripple and how he is handling the Ripple case?
Ripple's an unregistered security. It's pretty obvious. There's a company. The company owns a bunch of it. They sell it to the general public, but they never took the company public. There's no disclosures, right? So the SEC's position is you're selling an unregistered security. It's a crypto token, right? Just like Ethereum is an unregistered security. It's controlled by a few people in the Ethereum Foundation and Consensus.
Fair. Then here's a question.
Just like FTT, just like Solana.
Perfect. But here's a follow-up on that, Michael.
They're all unregistered security. I think the best thing for the world would be if the SEC pretty much shut down all of it. It's all unethical.
Doomberg quotes the video on Twitter, stating that he agrees 100% with Saylor's assertion in the video. The popular commodities analyst also explains that his thought on Saylor, which he has been known to criticize, is limited to the prudence of using his publicly traded company as a vehicle for a leveraged bet on the dollar price of Bitcoin. Host of the Rebel Capitalist podcast, George Gammon, also weighs in on the issue. Here is his response to Doomberg's tweet on Saylor. My thoughts have always been limited to him telling people to mortgage their house to buy Bitcoin. No matter how bullish you are on something, that is totally inexcusable. Boggles my mind, Bitcoin community has given him a free pass. He accompanies the tweet with his image of a news article reporting that Saylor allegedly urged investors to mortgage their houses to buy Bitcoin. Here is Saylor's reply to the wrongful accusations. This is a malicious distortion of crypto promoters intent on undermining Bitcoin. The assertions are created by their marketing departments and amplified through Twitter via their bot armies in the hope that real people like you will repeat them and legitimize the lie. If you review my interviews, you will see that my comments with regard to credit and property are more nuanced. In the event of financial repression or hyperinflation, it is unwise to sell scarce, appreciating property in order to pay off a low-interest rate, long-term mortgage. It is common sense that no investor should trade desirable and appreciating property for a collapsing currency being continually debased by central bankers. That is the road to serfdom. This is especially true in places like Argentina or Venezuela, which I have discussed at length. After a couple more tweets, Saylor, Gammon, and Doomberg agreed to meet on Gammon's podcast to debate Saylor's outlook on Bitcoin. In this video, we bring you a clip of Saylor's opening arguments for the world's largest cryptocurrency, especially how it is a hedge against fiat currency debasement. Please watch, share, and like this video. Also, ensure you subscribe to the channel and turn on post notifications for more videos. Thanks and enjoy the video.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that the passion for Bitcoin starts from the premise that the money in the world is broken, that the fiat system is a distortion of reality, which is cruel and brutal to the working class, the middle class, and anyone who is not politically wired to take advantage of the system. So I would also make the observation that most of the statistics from the government, that purport to measure the GDP or the inflation rate or the unemployment rate, they're warped. And so a lot of economics today is all revolving around getting you to accept a warped metric and then continuing to warp it such you come to the wrong conclusion.
Right.
And this graph is a classic example. This is the official, Federal Reserve published graph showing the debasement of the dollar over 100 years. And if you took it at face value, what it says is that 26 bucks is worth $1 today, and you lost 96% of your purchasing power. And if you look at the fine print, it says, oh, versus CPI.
Yeah.
Okay. But this is a working class model of inflation. If you're measuring a market basket of highly manufactured products like boxes of potato chips, or Netflix streaming videos, things that come out of factories, then you're not going to see the same inflation. The implication of that graph is that inflation was 3% for 100 years. But by the way, the official target is 2%. The implication of the graph is 3%. But I'll give you another number, which is in 1933, gold was $20 an ounce. And in the year 2020, gold was $2,000 an ounce. And you don't got to be a rocket scientist to figure out that's 100x increase, which meant that the money supply or the US dollar lost 99% of its value against a precious metal, the king precious metal. But that's not the right number either, because I'm sitting in a house right now, and the deed for the house, the transfer of the house, was $100,000 in 1930. And the house had somewhere in the range of $10,000 to $20,000 worth of land under it. So the price of land in Miami Beach, let's just be generous and say it was $20,000 an acre in 1930. It's easily $10 million an acre today.
Right.
That's 500x. Okay, that means you lost 99.8% of the value of the dollar in 100 years, and in 92 years. Right. And that implies 7% inflation a year. So gold bugs see 5%. If you want to own a nice beach house in Palm Beach, it's 7%. If you just want to live in your parents' basement and eat boxed cereal, right, and you want to live with the CPI things, if you want nothing nice, then 3%. But the government touched 2%. So what's this got to do with Bitcoin? Well, there's another chart, or another one I gave you, which is even more blood curdling, which is, I remember the Argentine peso being 1 peso to the dollar 22 years ago. Right now, the blue dollar rate is about 320 pesos to the dollar. You work through the math, and what you find out is that the inflation rate, the inflation rate of the peso versus the dollar is about 21 to 24% per year, 20 years running. Okay, which means that whereas in the US, we've been cutting the value of your money in half every decade, in Argentina, they're cutting the value of the money in half, or the currency in half, every 3 to 4 years.
Right.
Now you want the blood curdling statistic, right? That's a 24% loss per year against the dollar, and the dollar is 7% against scarce assets. So that means you're losing 31% of your purchasing power a year. If you buy into fiat currencies, if you're unlucky enough to be one of 4 billion people in a weak currency environment like Venezuela or Argentina, you're pretty much getting destroyed every 36 months. And if you're lucky enough to be in the US, you're just getting destroyed every 10 years.
So far, what Saylor has done is lay out the problems. In his previous interview, Saylor explained that he decided to add Bitcoin to MicroStrategy's balance sheet when he realized how fast the US dollar is being inflated. Since then, the business executive has spent billions of dollars purchasing the largest crypto by market cap. So far, MicroStrategy holds approximately 130,000 Bitcoin, the largest for any publicly listed company. In his interview with Gammon and Doomberg, Saylor explains how Bitcoin is the perfect solution for everyone who wants to beat the system, especially in countries like Venezuela, Argentina, and Nigeria.
And so that leaves us with the question of, well, what's the solution? Okay, and George, to be clear, I agree that this is a probabilistic assessment when you live in the US and you have to choose between gold, S&P indexes, real estate in Florida, and other derivatives and other contracts, and Apple stock. It's a probabilistic thing, and you got to have a portfolio of you. But the interest rate in Argentina right now is 49% overnight. And the official inflation rate is probably 60, and the unofficial inflation rate is 80. And so you have a different view toward probabilistic risk when the ship is sinking and you're about to lose everything in 36 months. So I would say with regard to Bitcoin, Bitcoin is an interesting, nice to have, and an intellectual discussion for people in Western Europe and the US and the developed world with a strong currency losing 7% of its value a year. But Bitcoin represents a life raft to the billions of people in Sri Lanka and Lebanon and Turkey and Argentina and Venezuela, not to mention the ones in Cuba and North Korea that have zero property rights. And of course, half of the world or more has capital controls, right? If you look at that blue dollar rate, what you'll find is that the official rate is 130 or 140, and the actual rate, yeah, there we go. The official rate is 170. The unofficial rate is 317. It means the government and the bank steal half of your money every time you change it.
Yeah.
Okay, and so this is offensive to the Bitcoiners, and our view is it's offensive that they steal half of your money every 36 months. And it's offensive they steal half your money every time you change it. And it's also offensive that MasterCard and Visa take 2.5% of your money every time you move a transaction from left to right, which means that if you do 40 transactions a year, you've lost all your money. So the credit system and the banking system is onerous and expensive and inefficient. And the monetary system and the fiat currencies are confiscatory, and they're brutally unfair. And if you want to have money, you can't depend upon the currencies. So if you're lucky and you're wealthy, maybe you can buy buildings and start Standard Oil, and you can invest in big tech. But what about the taxi cab driver in Nigeria? What about the 4 billion people that are, that are unbanked? And what about the other 3 billion that don't happen to be in the top billion elite? What about them?
Despite the current market conditions, which means Saylor's Bitcoin holdings are worth much less than he paid for them, the business executive is still completely convinced of the crypto asset's value. For all it's worth, so are we at Sagi Finance. Please let us know your thoughts on Saylor's interview and the current state of the crypto markets in the comment section below. When do you think Bitcoin will hit $100,000? And do you foresee a future where it hits $1 million per coin? Please drop your replies and predictions in the comments section below. If you're ready to do so, also ensure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and check out our other videos on cryptocurrencies and the overall digital assets industry. Thanks for watching.